Hey everyone, good morning. The topic for the talk is Kotlin for Pythonistas. How many of you have heard about Kotlin before this talk and have, lot of you, have out of 10 idea about 2 what Kotlin can do and how Kotlin works? How many of you have coded on Kotlin before? Apart from Android application. Okay, something about me. Myself Sarthak Deshwal. I come from Delhi, India. I work as a software development engineer at Expedia Group. I'm the part of their mobile team, so I'm a mobile developer there, works on everything around mobile and specifically on Android platform. I'm also a machine learning enthusiast, build machine learning services that serve the particular use cases on mobile for Expedia. This was about me. Let's get started. A brief introduction about Kotlin because most of you know what's Kotlin and why it's used. So Kotlin is a JVM based language. This means that you get the goodness of interoperability of Java everywhere with the Kotlin as well. You can use it for Android, you can use it for browsers as well. So Google has officially accepted Kotlin to be the official language for Android, and Expedia was the first mover there. So yeah, Kotlin got its popularity because of that purpose, but you can write Kotlin for JS as well. You can write Kotlin anywhere you write Java for your backend services, for your GUI applications that runs on Windows or Linux or Mac, anywhere. You can compile code on natively also to run on like microprocessors as well. So pretty much Kotlin can be used anywhere and you get all the goodness of JVM with it. Why Kotlin? Because it's concise. The most important part is concise. Java is a very verbose language. You have to we'll talk about it in a bit. I'll come back to concise in my PPT again. It's safe. The nasty null pointer exceptions throughout the code of Java, Kotlin take care of them. Kotlin is a null safe language. It's very hard to get a null pointer exception in Kotlin. Then it's interoperable. That means because it's a JVM based language, you can run it on Android, your browsers, and they are also trying to connect the pieces and so that the language can also run on iOS. That means that you get a native native experience on iOS as well as on Android by writing the same language, and you don't have to compile it from JavaScript as we used to do in React.js, React Native, and you can directly run code on both the platforms. And it's tool friendly. So whenever a new language comes into the market, the most important thing that we need to take care is where can I run it, and will I get the support for the language, and what IDs does it support? Because if there are no good IDs, small programs are fine, but when you run into big enterprise projects, it's become hard, really hard. When you have thousands and thousands of files in each module, it becomes hard. So Kotlin was made by JetBrains people, so they have pretty much the best ID right now, so you have a good ID support. The question is, we are in a PyCon conference, why should I even care about Kotlin? It's good sometimes to have a statically typed language under your belt to build enterprise projects. And it runs on JVM, so because most of the people have been coding on Python, you must know that sometimes Python becomes nasty when you have to ship your code from one platform to another. So it becomes really hard. And when you have a very huge code base written in Python, type checking, and all the things that a problem with the scripting language sometimes comes up. So it's good to know that you have a language which is as easy as Python to write and is statically typed and runs on JVM. That's why you should have the idea of Kotlin. Let's get started straight to the code. And sorry, this will start very basic. It's always good to start with hello world, so bear with me. So this is the hello world code in Kotlin. You run this file, you will get hello world printed, nothing else. The arguments array of strings. So this is same as you write a system arguments in Python. You have to, if you have to get parameters from command line, this is how you do it. You get array of strings if you have given some things on your command line while running this program. So this is if you are having no command line arguments, you can simply skip arguments and you get a very small looking function beside that. The thing is that because Kotlin needs to know the entry point and it's not a scripting language, it resembles back to the main. It finds main in your project to run. So main is the keyword that the first function will run. Like in Python, statements may be terminated by the semicolon, but it's discouraged, like in Python. There is no line continuation character. Instead, a line is automatically joined with another or more of subsequent line if that's the only way to make your code parse correctly. Now that is pretty much the opposite of what I'll pretty much the opposite of JavaScript, which will generally keep joining the lines. So yeah, hello world is as simple as that. The next thing is, how do you declare variables? Every variable must be declared. Any attempt to use a variable that hasn't been declared yet is a syntax error. Thus, you are protected from accidentally assigning to a misspelled variable anywhere. The declaration also decides what kind of data you are allowed to store in the variable. So you don't have to give the type of the variable, but once you assign it, it knows, it infers the type of the variable, and then you cannot change it afterwards. So you cannot use the same variable for different types when and if needed in the function. Local variables are typically declared and initialized at the same time, in which case the type of the variable is inferred to be the type of expression you initialize it with. As you can see how we have declared with numbers and messages. We have a local variable number, that's done, okay. However, if you want your variable values to not change throughout the program, you have a provision for that, which is you can declare your variables with val. There's a difference between var and a val. Val, once you give it value, it won't change throughout the program. So it acts like a constant. It's a read-only variable and not a modified variable. So the terminology is that var declares a mutable variable and val declares a read-only or assign once variable. But both are variables. But the important thing to note here is that val is not a constant. It can be initialized with the value of a variable. So its value does not need to be known at the compile time. That's the difference between a constant and a val. Val declared once cannot change, but you can assign a value after compilation also. If you want, you can declare the types explicitly to the variables, like we have done in the third example, val characters char sequence equals to ABC. You have told it that it's a type of char sequence, because if you have given it the liberty, it would have been inferred as a string. But if you wanted to keep it as char sequence, you can always do that. How about if-else? So the code looks similar if we take the top example about if-else. The thing about if-else in Kotlin is that it's not, if-else is a function and you pass a lambda to it. That means your if can have a return type. So I don't have an example here, but imagine that if age is less than 10 and I want to return false, I can just write if age less than 10 false, and that will get assigned to the variable in front of it. That means it has a return type. It works in the same way as in Python, but we write else if instead of elif. That's a simple change, and the conditions are enclosed in parentheses, and the bodies are enclosed in curly braces. That's the difference between Python and Kotlin's if-else. So as I have already told that if-else is also an expression, meaning that you don't need ternary operators here. So I'm trying to stage Kotlin like how does it come from Java, and how can if you have a code in Python, how can you shift between it. So I'm trying to make that bridge for you people. And then we have when as well. We are not going to go in deep, but it doesn't have an equivalent in Python. But it's nice. It's really cool. Believe me, I've been using it for a lot of time, and if you have like 10 conditions which you have to just match the type, it becomes super easy here. You just write what's the type of the variable and it will keep on doing that thing for you. Okay, the next thing is collections. When I started Python, the most happy moment was that I knew that I can create lists, tuples, hash maps. Like there were so many of them in my disposable, and because I tried Java before Python, you don't have to create them. In Java, you have to first write array list of and everything like that. In Python, I just write list and I added the elements, and I was so happy. Same goes with the Kotlin. You can just write list of and you can put things. It will automatically infer that it's a type of string, or you can map off is the equivalent of dictionary in Python. So you have like mappings of A to 1, B to C, and then you create a hash map out of it. And you can create sets as you have created in Python, and these are damn easy. Also, so list, map, and set has they are immutable things right now. They have the interfaces implemented of lists, but if you want mutable, you can just write mutable list of, mutable map of, mutable set of, and you will have that you can mutate the data types. Unfortunately, if you want an empty collection, you need to either declare the resulting collection type explicitly or supply the element type to the function that constructs the collection. So that's shown in the second example. The types inside the angular brackets are called generic type parameters, which will come back again. In short, it's a useful technique to make a class that is tied to another class. Problem is, you don't have a mixed type collection. In Python, you can have a mixed type collection. Here, you can't see a mixed type collection. How do you do that? We'll come back to that also. Loops. Kotlin's loops are similar to Python's. For iterates over anything that is iterable. As you can see in the first example, sorry for the loud noise. Note that for loop always implicitly declares a new read-only variable. In this example, the name. If the outer scope already contains a variable with the same name, it will be shadowed by the unrelated loop variable. So it's a good practice to keep the names different. You can create a range with the operator as you do in Python, like you write for I in range 10. You can do similarly here. Like if you have used range function, you can say 0, 10 with a step function of 2. You can do similar thing here. And because range returns you a list, you can store that in a variable. You can do that here as well. Val numbers equals, it will return you a list of numbers from 0 to 9, and that will be assigned to numbers. So the point I'm trying to make again and again is that your Python code line by line can be converted to Kotlin. Functions. The only change that I try to see here is that def has been replaced with fun, because it's fun to write in Kotlin. Apart from that, if you have been coding in Python 3, you know that you can give the parameter types in Python functions as well now. So you must declare, you must tell the types. The thing is, because it's a statically typed language, it won't accept any other type in the function. It will give you an error. Here when you tell that the name is a string, age must be an integer and the function must return a string, you can create a one-liner functions as well, where the body simply is the expression whose result is to be returned. If anybody comes from the background of C, C++ and you create macros there, it's similar stuff going on here. In that case, return type is inferred and an equal sign is used to indicate that this is a one-liner, as you can see with the function square. One thing, because I'm not covering operators here, we don't have double star operator as a power function. And the general naming convention is that you don't put underscores and you follow the Java based convention, which is a camel casing. And the last one is how do you can call a function. If it returns a value, you can assign it to anything. There's a difference between return of Kotlin and Python. And the difference is, if you don't write a return statement in Python, it returns none. But in Kotlin, it returns nothing. It just gives back the control function back to where it left. It returns nothing. And when I say nothing, it means literal nothing, because Kotlin has a data type called nothing. So when I say nothing, it means it just gives back the control and returns. So yeah, that's a little confusing, but nothing is a data type in Kotlin. That means literally nothing. Your function, your program will end there. So in Python, functions names must be unique within the module or a class. But we can overload functions in Kotlin, as we have been studying if in object-oriented things that you can overload functions. You can do that in Kotlin. There can be multiple declarations of functions. But as in Python, if you want to have a default value to a function parameter, which you can't do in Java, but you can do in Python, you can do in Kotlin. So if, let's suppose I want to default the age to 0. If I don't get an age, I can just write age, call an int equals to 10, and anybody can call happy birthday with the name and can skip the age. It works in Kotlin as well. And then you have variable arguments, like you have in Python, like you have star args and star quar args. You have variable arguments in Kotlin as well. You can just, they're type of varargs. You can just say varargs and it will keep on accepting the values inside the function. Okay, the cool thing that I was talking about in the beginning was, we talked about Kotlin, it's a JVM based language, but we haven't talked about class. We haven't written class word yet, and we were running programs. So Kotlin can be used in, it's not a scripting language, but it can be used as a scripting language as well. So you can just fire the code and you can keep on running it. So how you could declare a class? It's the same as you declare in Python. You can just write class word and the name of the class. And the second example is val objects is equals to empty. This is how you declare class. Kotlin has 3 types of constructors. So one is the constructor, one is this constructor where you just pass the values, which is how when your class is being initialized, what you want the value of your variables. Then you have this constructor as well, and it will get called if you have any custom logic that you want to run in your file while you're creating the class. And then you have the keyword constructor as well, where if you want to have multiple constructor types in your class, you can just write the word constructor and then you can declare classes as well. So there are 3 ways to declare constructors. Because it's soup, it will take one more slide as well. You have something called late init variable. Sometimes you declare a variable and don't know what's the value going to be. So you can just say late init. What it does is it creates a placeholder inside the memory but doesn't assign it a space. It's just a placeholder where your variable names are stored but no memory has been assigned. And you can assign it afterwards wherever you like. Problem with this is if you don't assign it, you will get an error. You will get a property uninitialized error. Then you have enum classes. Because we are short of time, I'm skipping this. This is kind of cool data classes because you don't have that in Java as well as in Python. Data classes tells that it gives you a set of things that I'll take such and such things, and it creates a getters and setters for you automatically, so you don't have to go and declare with your hands. If you have a complex return type, this is the best case you can have. Like if you have a complex return type, just go with the data classes. Functional. Like in Python, functions in Kotlin are first class values. They can be assigned to variables and pass around as parameters. The type of a function is a function type. Like function, if you're reading me, say function is in italics, it's at a function type, which is indicated with the parenthesis, parameter type list, and an arrow to the return type. The first one. That's the second one, this one, if you see. So this is how you can pass on functions and can call them from anywhere you like. Functional literals, lambda expressions, and anonymous functions. Like in Python, you can write lambda expressions, unnamed functions declarations with compact syntax, even in Java 7, which doesn't support lambdas as of yet. So if you have the SDK of Java 7, you can still run this, which evaluate to callable function objects. In Kotlin, lambdas can contain multiple statements, which make them useful for more complex tasks than the single expression lambdas. Then you have a lot of utility functions like run, let, and with. So in the first example, as you see, there is maybe a question mark with a dot. Question mark with a dot is what I was talking about. It's null safe. So if maybe null is actually null, it won't execute the code and it will go to the next statement. What run does is it lets you run the code in the whatever you have written in the as pass as a lambda. What let does is it's the same, and with some expression, it's the same with. It's not the same with as in Python, because with we define a scope that this variable lives in that scope. Here with what it does, it gives you that whenever this expression is true, only execute this code, else go away from here. There is more, like you have functions like apply, also take if. So take if, what it does, if the value is greater than 42, then only it will execute the further statement, else it will move out from here and will move out the other executable lines. Heterogeneous collections. You can create heterogeneous collections because you have generics. You can create your own class, like I have created with the tree node, and then I can create a linked list where I can just put on whatever data type I like, and I can keep on creating a linked list, and I can have a heterogeneous list. It's a little bit of code, but that's a problem when you have statically typed languages. And thank you. And questions?
You mentioned that Python doesn't have data classes on the advanced, but isn't there a data class in Python 3.7? Is it the same or is it different?
I cannot tell you because I haven't used the Python 3.7 data classes yet. But what I know is that when you create a data classes in Kotlin, the ability you get is that you have it works like enum. So data classes works like enum. It's a class with a defined set of rules, defined set of variables that you can assign, and you can take that object from anywhere to anywhere. And it gives you functionalities like toString, compare, and all those functionalities that you want in a class. I think that's it. Yeah.
I want to know, are there any downsides for using Kotlin? Did you experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Kotlin is a new language, so it definitely has some bugs. So I don't know if they have fixed it or not, but their if-else branching used to have some bug. So Kotlin doesn't let you compile your code if your condition is always going to be true. They have provisioned that for the efficiency. But sometimes what they infer that the condition is always going to be true, which is not essentially true. it sometimes gives that sort of error. So I have faced one, but I'm sure that because it's a very new language, you might have some.
Would you recommend Kotlin to use in production now since it's a new language?
I have 2 of my microservices in Kotlin which takes traffic of around more than 1000 DPS. My Android code is more than 60% in Kotlin. So yes, I recommend that. We have taken that step at Expedia.
Any available machine learning library for Kotlin?
There are a lot. Also, if you have any library in Java, you can use it in Kotlin. So all the infrastructure that was created by Java can be used here without like dropping a sweat. And you can create more. So there, I don't remember the names exactly, but there are at least 3 libraries that I have in my project that are specifically for data science. And you can use the Scala Spark as you use in the Kotlin.